Smuggling is an art form. A weird, illegal, often deeply stupid art form. From parrots in suitcases to frogs in shampoo bottles, this isn't your typical border check. These aren't just "what were they thinking" moments. They're "how did they survive this dumb" moments. Let's unpack 49 of the wildest, boldest, and most brain-melting smuggling attempts in US history. And yes, someone really used a wig. More than once. 1. Someone tried to smuggle thousands of dollars inside a massive wheel of cheese. Yes, apparently cheddar isn't just for crackers anymore. It's for cash laundering. Border officers grew suspicious when this dairy delight weighed more than a small boulder. Upon slicing it open, they found bundles of rolled-up bills hiding in the curd. Somewhere, there's a criminal regretting that they didn't choose brie. It's way harder to slice cleanly. And hey, let's be honest, money mozzarella sounds like a startup idea that somehow already exists in Brooklyn. 2. One traveler thought a salami-stuffed sandwich wasn't complete without a side of narcotics. They hollowed out a big juicy sausage and filled it with pills instead of pork. The problem? It weighed like a dumbbell and smelled like regret. Customs officers trained in the fine art of deli deception sliced it open and found what we'll generously call the world's worst antipasto. I mean, who looks at a salami and thinks, "You know what this needs? Contraband." 3. Imagine being a beetle, minding your own business in the rainforest, and next thing you know, you're glued to someone's suitcase lining. That was the fate of dozens of exotic beetles smuggled by a traveler who thought living luggage was a solid plan. The plan fell apart when some of the insects started crawling mid-flight, instantly turning the customs search into a horror movie. Moral of the story? If your suitcase starts moving on its own, it's not magic, it's a felony. 4. A smuggler once thought shipping a live kangaroo to the US would be easier if they just labeled it as farm equipment. Bold move. But unfortunately for them, crates labeled farm tools typically don't thump from the inside. Border agents heard the noise, opened the box, and found a confused kangaroo probably wondering if this counted as immigration or kidnapping. Let's just say the roo bounced back, but the smuggler didn't. 5. One suitcase held a nightmare blend of circus and crime, a bunch of creepy clown costumes, and weapons. Yep, someone really thought TSA wouldn't question a duffel bag that screamed Stephen King's Lost Luggage. Security opened it and found hidden blades tucked between frilly ruffles and rainbow wigs. The only thing more terrifying than a clown is a clown packing heat. And if that was your plan A, what on earth was plan B? Chainsaw juggler? 6. Fireworks. In a watermelon. That's not just smuggling, it's a summer BBQ from hell. Someone actually hollowed out a watermelon, stuffed it with illegal fireworks, then resealed it like they were prepping for the most explosive fruit salad in history. Border agents got suspicious when this melon felt less like a snack and more like a cannonball. They cracked it open expecting seeds, but instead got enough pyrotechnics to start a backyard revolution. Imagine lighting that thing by accident. Ooh, look, a juicy boom. 7. Picture this. 2 coconuts slowly croaking at customs. Not metaphorically, literally croaking. A smuggler carved them out and crammed live frogs inside, then sealed them back up like some kind of amphibian Kinder Surprise. And no, this wasn't an audition for Tropical Muppets Gone Rogue. Officers opened them up and found tiny, very annoyed frogs who'd had enough of this tropical prison sentence. Honestly, the only thing missing was a mini umbrella and a cocktail menu. 8. You buy your kid a toy car. It rolls. It honks. It sets off alarms at the airport. Turns out, the insides were ripped out and replaced with uncut diamonds, transforming it from Hot Wheels to high stakes. X-ray scans caught the glittering guts. And just like that, someone's geology side hustle went down the drain. I just hope the kid wasn't there to witness his toy getting dissected like a scene from CSI Matchbox Edition. Mom, why is my race car in handcuffs? 9. Some wigs are bad. Some wigs are illegal wildlife crimes. A smuggler thought they could sneak rare bird feathers into the US by turning a toupee into a full-on aviary. But customs officers noticed something was off. Mainly that the wig looked like it was nesting eggs and about to take flight. Turns out it wasn't a hairpiece. It was a feathery Frankenstein stitched together from endangered birds. Somewhere, a bald eagle cried a single tear. And that smuggler got a haircut from the justice system. 10. Another wig, another crime. This time, diamonds. The smuggler packed precious gems into a giant puffy wig, like they were auditioning for Real Housewives of Federal Prison. Customs got suspicious when it looked like the hairpiece could host a bird wedding and serve as a chandelier. One pat down later and boom, diamonds spilling out like a bedazzled piñata. Moral of the story, if your wig has a net worth, it's probably a bad idea to wear it through security. 11. When your car door starts leaking and it's not oil, you've got a problem. This smuggler turned their vehicle into a mobile aquarium hiding exotic fish inside the door panels. Live fish, in bags, in the car. It might have worked if physics didn't exist. The plan tanked, literally, when one bag burst, and customs officers followed the wet trail like a Scooby-Doo villain. You know it's bad when your Camry starts gurgling. On the bright side, the fish got a new home, one without airbags. 12. You ever try walking with bird eggs in your shoes? This genius did. Smuggled rare bird eggs by lining their shoes with them. Yes, inside the soles. But when officers noticed the traveler waddling like a confused penguin, they took a closer look. The man claimed they were for his breakfast. Right. Because nothing says gourmet omelet like sweaty foot eggs from the Andes. The eggs were saved, the shoes were confiscated, and the smuggler probably still explaining his gait. 13. Honey, I bought you flowers. And also $40,000 in unmarked bills. Customs caught onto this not-so-romantic bouquet when the fake flowers weighed like a gym kettlebell. Turns out, the stems were packed with tightly rolled cash, hidden so poorly it might as well have been labeled love from the IRS. Honestly, if your roses clang when you set them down, maybe don't take them through an airport. 14. Let's talk about divine smuggling. Someone hollowed out a Bible and shoved a live lizard inside, presumably hoping for divine protection. Customs scanned it, opened it, and probably yelled, "What in the Revelation?" The reptile, dazed but alive, was rescued. The smuggler tried to play it off as a spiritual support animal, which makes sense because this plan clearly required a leap of faith. 15. Pineapples, tasty, tropical, and apparently jewel-compatible. A smuggler hollowed one out, jammed it full of rare gems, and glued the spiky top back on like a fruity Fabergé egg. But when officers noticed it smelled more like superglue than sunshine, they sliced it open, and out spilled sparkle. It's unclear what's worse, wasting a perfectly good pineapple or turning it into a failed episode of Smuggling Gone Fancy. 16. A suitcase full of mannequin parts sounds like the beginning of a horror movie. But this wasn't just weird, it was strategic. Each fake limb was hollowed out and packed with illegal pills. Customs officers opened the bag and were greeted by dismembered limbs, grinning back at them. Honestly, even if the drugs hadn't been there, that suitcase still deserved a criminal charge for emotional trauma. 17. Picture a man at the airport with something twitching in his sleeve. Officers noticed, stared for a second, and then, boom, out slithers a live snake. The guy tried to argue it was his emotional support animal. Sir, that's a python, not a therapy dog. Unless you're an actual Disney villain, maybe don't treat your forearm like a reptile Airbnb. 18. It's just a chair, they said. It's suspiciously heavy, replied Customs. And right they were. Inside the carved-out legs of a wooden chair were ivory carvings, smuggled with the grace of a failing antique dealer. This wasn't a seat. It was a felony with armrests. Let's just say the smuggler is now sitting somewhere a lot less comfortable. 19. Nothing screams botanical bandit like a baby stroller that weighs more than a small refrigerator. A traveler rolled through customs pushing a stroller that looked normal, until an officer tried to move it and almost threw their back out. No baby, no toys, no diaper bag. Just leafy contraband crammed into every available compartment like a greenhouse on wheels. Turns out, the The smuggler had filled it with rare, endangered plants wrapped in damp cloth to keep them alive. I mean, if you're going to impersonate a parent, maybe include a baby doll. Or at least pretend you're tired from sleepless nights. Instead, the guy pushed his chlorophyll chariot straight into a federal offense. 20. Ah yes, the classic, nothing to declare, except a suitcase full of parrots. This genius decided to smuggle several live parrots by cramming them into a rolling suitcase with air holes and, brace yourself, taped beaks. I can't decide if that's horrifying or just wildly stupid. Naturally, one parrot managed to let out a muffled squawk mid-screening, which set off an instant red alert. Agents opened the case and were met with a flurry of feathers and death glares. The birds were rescued, the smuggler arrested, and honestly, someone should have charged them with assault for making parrots go full silent mode. That's psychological warfare. 21. If James Bond golfed at Fort Knox, this would be his carry-on. A traveler showed up with a set of golf clubs, acting like they were heading to Pebble Beach, except the clubs were hollowed out and stuffed with literal gold bars, like full-on gleaming bricks of metal. But TSA agents aren't easily dazzled. The scanner lit up like a Christmas tree, and one officer probably shouted, "4," before cracking the case. What tipped them off? The bag weighed enough to tip over a small elephant. Moral of the story, if your putter's denser than uranium, expect a full cavity search. Of your luggage. Probably. 22. This smuggler thought they'd built the ultimate Trojan toy. A bright, plastic, kid-friendly drone packed with illegal tech and smuggled components. It had the cheerful colors of a toddler's birthday present. But underneath? Wires, hidden compartments, and enough irregularities to make even a lazy agent go, "Wait a minute." The plan might have worked if the drone's parts weren't clearly mismatched, like someone mashed together a Barbie helicopter and a Soviet spy bot. The device never left the ground. Meanwhile, the smuggler's dreams of becoming the Pablo Escobar of Toys R Us went down in flames before takeoff. 23. You know you're in trouble when your leg sets off every alarm at airport security. And it's not even your real leg. One man thought he'd pulled off the perfect scheme by hiding gold bars inside his prosthetic limb. Bold. Original. Also, horrendously obvious. The leg weighed so much he could barely limp through the terminal, drawing more attention than a man in a clown suit juggling chainsaws. When the detector screamed and the agent asked why his leg sounded like a cash register, the man shrugged. Let's just say his golden getaway turned into a very slow, very awkward perp walk. 24. Imagine handing over a cute stuffed bear at customs, then watching the officer squish it like it owes them money. That's what happened when a smuggler tried hiding gold coins inside a teddy bear. The toy was stitched back up like Frankenstein's plush cousin and weighed about as much as a bowling ball. The smuggler explained, "It's a weighted emotional support animal," which is exactly what you say when your bear has the street value of a small apartment. Officers weren't buying it, and neither was Build-A-Bear's legal team. 25. During Halloween season, one traveler thought they could blend in with a pumpkin packed full of drugs, hollowed out, sealed shut, and passed off as decor. Cute idea. Sloppy execution. Officers flagged it because, surprise, it had zero smell of produce, and no one carves a pumpkin without scooping the guts out first. When they cracked it open, they found more powder than a bakery explosion. Turns out, the only scary thing about this pumpkin was the sentencing guidelines. And yes, the smuggler was in costume, as a totally normal traveler. Bold choice. 26. What's more romantic than a wedding cake? One that's entirely fake and filled with stolen jewelry. A smuggler created a 3-tiered masterpiece out of foam and frosting, packed the layers with precious stones, and tried to check it as fragile cargo. The problem? Real cakes are heavy, and this one felt like a hollow piñata. Customs gave it a gentle tap and realized it was lighter than a heartbreak text. One swipe of a knife later, and diamonds spilled out like sprinkles. The only vows exchanged that day? I solemnly swear to never try that again. 27. Picture it. An airport violin case, classy, discreet, and hissing. One traveler tried to pull a full Bond villain move by stuffing live snakes into a violin case. Not one, not two, multiple. Their brilliant camouflage? Punching air holes into the case like it wouldn't look suspicious at all. You know what raises red flags? A violin that breathes. Customs opened it, expecting a Stradivarius, and instead got Indiana Jones's worst nightmare. Forget music. The only thing playing was a sad trombone for this reptile roadie. 28. There are diaper bags, and then there are nightmare pouches. This smuggler packed dozens of exotic insects inside a baby bag, banking on the fact that no one wants to rummage through baby supplies. And they were almost right, until the bag moved. Officers peeked inside expecting baby wipes and found a wriggling mess of multi-legged chaos. Honestly, I'd pay to see the face of the customs agent who opened it. Sir, why is your baby buzzing? 29. A wig, plastic bags, live fish. This wasn't a fashion statement. It was aquatic madness. A smuggler tucked small fish into sealed bags of water and then wore them under a voluminous wig. I guess they thought TSA wouldn't notice if their head squished and sloshed. But security caught on quickly when the wig started dripping like a busted aquarium. Let's just say the fish weren't the only ones flopping around that day. That smuggler's plan? All wet. 30. If you've ever seen someone walk like they've got bricks in their shoes, it might have been coral. One traveler tried sneaking out protected coral by hollowing out their sneakers and cramming the rare marine rock inside. Unfortunately for them, the soles looked chunkier than a 1990s moon boot. Customs inspected the shoes and discovered that instead of cushioning, they were carrying endangered reef chunks. The smuggler now walks barefoot, straight into environmental fines. 31. A loaf of bread that hops? Yeah, that's a red flag. This smuggler carved out the inside of a baguette and packed it with live frogs, thinking carbs would hide the cargo. But when the loaf started twitching on the table, officers didn't wait for butter. They sliced it open and found amphibians instead of sandwich filler. The frogs were saved. The bread was not. And the smuggler? Toast. 32. Somewhere, a child was robbed of a toy truck, and a dozen frogs were given the world's smallest prison cell. A smuggler packed the critters into the hollow compartments of a kid's toy vehicle. But frogs, being frogs, aren't exactly quiet passengers. One of them croaked at just the wrong time, alerting customs to this makeshift amphibian U-Haul. The truck was impounded. The frogs were freed. The smuggler's plan? Croaked. 33. Trying to pass airport security with a live falcon strapped under your coat is either the boldest flex in history or a symptom of complete delusion. The smuggler thought silence would protect them, but falcons, as it turns out, have wings. Officers heard faint flapping and discovered the regal bird tucked under layers like a feathery fashion statement. The bird, somehow chill about the whole thing, was rescued. The human? Not so much. Moral of the story: don't smuggle wildlife that could eat your excuse. 34. And then there was the monkey in the suitcase. Literally, a traveler zipped up a live monkey in their luggage and tried to pass through customs like it was casual. But monkeys don't do casual, they do chaos. Halfway through the scan, the little guy started chattering, then shaking the suitcase like a furry alarm bell. When officers unzipped it, they found one very annoyed primate clutching a sock and questioning every decision that brought him here. I feel you, little dude. We all want out a baggage claim. 35. Imagine lighting a candle for ambiance, only to catch a felony charge. One smuggler got crafty, too crafty, and poured wax around a hollow center packed with drugs. From the outside, it looked like a perfectly normal decorative candle, something you'd see in a cozy farmhouse kitchen. But here's the kicker: it weighed like a bowling ball, not exactly relaxing. Customs got suspicious, took one whiff, and realized this wasn't lavender, it was chemical nonsense. They melted it down and uncovered the stash inside. And just like that, the scented candle went from Pottery Barn to penitentiary. 36. Shampoo that croaks back at you? Yeah, that'll raise some eyebrows. A traveler filled several shampoo bottles with live frogs, thinking TSA wouldn't notice the swap if they floated in soapy water. Spoiler: frogs are not known for their stealth. Officers heard the croaking and opened a bottle expecting conditioner. Got a frog doing laps instead. I don't know what's worse, the idea itself or the fact that this person probably looked customs dead in the eye and said, "That's my travel size." Sir, your hair care routine is a war crime. 37. Ah yes, the old Book of Crime trick. A smuggler hollowed out a thick hardcover novel and stuffed it full of cash, hoping no one would care about a traveler reading 2,000 pages of obscure economic theory. But the book weighed less than it should have, and more importantly, it didn't bend right. Agents opened it up and were greeted with more paper, just not the kind meant for reading. It turns out when your novel's full of Benjamins, the only genre it qualifies as is non-fiction felony. 38. Oversized wigs have hidden a lot of bad ideas, but this one takes the cake, or the roach. Someone actually stuffed live insects into their hairpiece, hoping to smuggle dozens of rare bugs through customs on their scalp. The plan was crawling along just fine until one adventurous beetle made a run for it mid-inspection. The officer didn't even flinch, just muttered, "Not again," like this happens every Tuesday. Word to the wise, if your hairstyle requires pest control, you might be doing smuggling wrong. 39. A prosthetic arm filled with gold dust? Now that's next-level commitment to armed robbery. The smuggler figured no one would question their artificial limb, so they hollowed it out and packed it with fine gold particles. The problem? That arm lit up the X-ray machine like a Christmas tree. When asked about the contents, they reportedly shrugged and said it was just for weight training. Bold. But unfortunately, your biceps won't save you from federal charges. 40. Whoever said breakfast is the most important meal of the day clearly wasn't expecting felony pancakes. A smuggler layered flapjacks, hollowed out the middle, and hid stolen jewels between them. Then, for that authentic touch, glued the stack together like a kindergarten art project. Customs flagged it because the pancakes didn't smell like food. They smelled like hardware store. One officer poked it, and the whole thing cracked open like a cursed IHOP special. Nothing says American breakfast like syrup, butter, and a dash of grand larceny. 41. A soda can. That sparkles on the inside is not as refreshing as it sounds. One traveler hollowed out a can of cola, filled it with rare gems, and sealed it so precisely it looked factory fresh. Almost. Customs caught on when the can's weight was off by just enough to raise suspicion. After a quick X-ray, the secret treasure trove was exposed. Carbonation-free, gem-packed, and stupidly obvious in hindsight. Pro tip: if your Sprite clinks like a treasure chest, maybe don't bring it through international security. 42. You know what's not a great carry-on item? A live tiger. Someone thought it'd be a good idea to smuggle an actual tiger cub inside a suitcase, wrapped in blankets like it was a stuffed toy. They even tried to pass it off as a gift for their nephew. Right, because your average nephew's birthday wish list includes a predator. Customs officers were tipped off when the bag started growling. Slowly, repeatedly. They opened it to find a very real, very sleepy tiger that looked mildly annoyed to be treated like checked luggage. The cub was rescued, the traveler arrested, and somewhere, Siegfried and Roy probably rolled their eyes. 43. The classic hollowed-out Bible trick, but with extra sparkle. A passenger carved out the sacred pages and filled the holy void with stolen jewelry. On the outside, divine devotion. On the inside, enough bling to blind a televangelist. The weight was off, the X-ray glowed like a disco ball, and officers found a sparkling stash where scripture should be. One agent reportedly muttered, "Thou shalt not smuggle," as they sealed the evidence bag. Divine Comedy, Federal Edition. 44. Who knew a teddy bear could coo and flap? Customs officers were confused when a giant plush toy felt alive. Inside, they found several live pigeons, taped and stuffed into the bear's stuffing like it was Noah's Ark meets Build-A-Bird. The birds were stressed, but okay. The bear, however, looked permanently traumatized. The smugglers' plan hinged on officers being too charmed by cuteness to check. Instead, they witnessed the world's most unsettling game of hide-and-seek. Verdict: Plushy prison. 45. Surf's Up took on a whole new meaning when Customs cracked open a surfboard and found baby turtles inside. The smuggler had hollowed it out, turned it into a reptilian subwoofer, and sealed it like a prop from a low-budget wildlife smuggling film. The giveaway? A strong smell of seawater and the faint scratching of flippered fugitives. Officers split it open and rescued the little guys. Surfboard smuggling. Not a sport recognized by the Olympics. Yet. 46. Let's talk about dedication. One smuggler hollowed out the handle of their suitcase and packed it with gemstones, thinking no one would suspect the literal grip of luxury. But the handle was heavier than a bowling trophy, and X-ray machines aren't easily fooled. Officers cracked it open and found gems so tightly packed the handle looked like it had swallowed a treasure chest. It's the kind of move that screams, "If I hold it, no one will look inside," until they do. 47. Ever seen luggage that looks like it's growing tumors? Customs officers did. A traveler lined the interior of their suitcase with dozens of exotic bird eggs, carefully wrapped in cloth to prevent breakage. But the bulging, lumpy lining made it look like the bag had chickenpox. That, plus its fragile egg sac aroma, earned it a one-way ticket to inspection. The eggs were seized, the birds to be protected, and the smuggler likely learned that nature doesn't fit neatly into Samsonite. 48. A water cooler that smells like the bottom of a fishing boat? Not exactly refreshing. One traveler tried to sneak illegal fish into the country by stashing them in a sealed portable cooler. Problem is, when customs lifted the lid, they didn't smell crisp mountain spring. They got a nostril full of salt water and regret. Inside were live fish sloshing in a makeshift tank, clearly not part of anyone's hydration plan. The officer reportedly said, "This cooler's got more fins than ice." Accurate. 49. Ever pop the hood of a car and be greeted by 30 angry iguanas? Customs officers did. A smuggler stuffed their vehicle's engine compartment with live iguanas, each wrapped in cloth like cold-blooded burritos. The problem? Iguanas move and scratch and hiss. The officers heard something weird, lifted the hood, and found a full-blown lizard rave happening inside. One agent nearly jumped out of their skin. Another asked if the car ran on gas or geckos. Either way, the only thing going 0 to 60 that day was the smuggler's arrest record. Some smuggled birds, others smuggled entire tigers. And you just watched it all happen. So now the real question is, what's the most ridiculous thing you could smuggle, and how? Don't hold back. Comment section's open for madness. And hey, if this made you laugh, cringe, or just question humanity a little more, smash that like, hit subscribe, and prepare for more chaos.